What's up, guys? Welcome back to Clear the Cash. I'm your host, Nate Liss. You can find me on Twitter at @AnOutrageJew. And as always, Mr. Jesse Bach is here. You can find him on Twitter at planet_fatness. And tonight we have a guest. Many of you may not know who this individual is. This is somebody that came to Jesse and I because he's got quite a story to tell on many different levels. His name is Jon Scanlon. And you can find him on Twitter at Denver Card Shows. Jon, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, boys. Thank you very much for having me on. You know, first time, long time, and just glad to be a part of it.
That's awesome, man. We, as I said, we've had two other people on here. We had an economist who ripped apart the economy, of course, and NFTs, and we got a bunch of blowback. Then we had Rob, who was just a big-time card enthusiast, major spender, had that's the old price, obviously had quite a collection. And you are a different cut of cloth in many ways from these other two guys. I mean, have you heard our other interviews in the past?
Oh, yeah. I sat there shaking my head during that NFT interview going, that guy's fucking wrong. That guy's wrong. And look where we are today. You know, Top Shot is a pile of steaming crap, and yeah, your guy was on. So I've been listening to you guys since day one. It's great content. You know, I'm a Roto Underworld guy, you know, love you and Matt Kelly. So I'm just glad to be a part of this, and thank you very much for bringing me on, guys.
I appreciate it. And to be honest with you, so our patron group, the Discord, they were pounding the table for you to come on. And interestingly enough, because I want to get Jesse's take here, I saw a photo of you and Jesse. And now correct me if I'm wrong, because we talked about this. Is Jesse not like 6'5" with huge guns? What's going on here?
Bro, so I'm telling you, with the Planet Fatness and the little bit of a round face on the screen here, I thought I was looking at, you know, one of my friendly doughboys, you know, but this guy comes up and, you know, I'm pretty sure he could have thrown me around and stuff. So yeah, that Twitter handle is definitely ironic.
I appreciate that, both of you guys. I appreciate the nice comments about my physique. But dude, Jon, honest to God, if the patrons and if the members of the Discord didn't vouch for you to come on this show, like I kind of hinted at the show at the National that you know we're gonna be needing more guests on the show. So if they didn't vouch for you, I would have. So, dude, honest to God, you're like one of my favorite people in the hobby. Dude, you are just like as genuine as they come. Dude, honestly, one of the kindest people, one of the kindest dealers I've ever had the pleasure of dealing with or of even conversing with. So, dude, honest to God, if people on the Patreon or on the Discord, if they didn't vouch for you, I honest to God would have.
Well, I appreciate that, Jesse. And, you know, like I said, I appreciate all the hard work you put into what you're doing here. You know, obviously what you do is a lot of research and a lot of time. So thank you for that. You know, I'm very, very big into building the card community and making it stronger and healthier for everybody. So I tend to gravitate towards the people that do that. And I think that you guys did a great job coming out of the gate. So
I think this is where my favorite part of this particular interview is going to come into play, is that you have such a strong sense of community in the card world. And this is something that when I had left and come back, and I think you've got a story kind of similar to mine, but when Jesse and I had first started getting together and my interactions with people in this particular category of collectibles, of whatever, you know, of what's going on in the world today, like these are the nicest, most enthusiastic people. There are very few haters out there. I mean, and I told Jesse, I block like at least 2 people before this episode even started recording. So to run into somebody like you is so refreshing, because I really do feel like you sort of embody what I've already felt is going on in the industry.
Thank you very much, Nate. You know, it's all about the community. You know, we'll touch on some of those stories that we had that, you know, could have run me off early, and, you know, what we're trying to do to make sure that this doesn't happen to anybody else.
Yeah, you're our listening audience. I mean, you are like every person that listens to this show, because many people have the same story that they collected in their youth. There was a big break. They came back. Is that your story? What's your background in the hobby?
Yeah. So at 8 years old, I was a kid that was growing up in New Jersey. I loved the New York Mets. And if you don't know a lot of baseball history, the 1986 New York Mets may have been one of the better baseball teams ever assembled as far as playing baseball is concerned. So I remember, going down to the convenience store down the road from my house and buying packs in 1985 and 1986 Topps, only looking for the Mets cards. And, that was where it began for me, with the love of baseball and just the love of cards. I discovered the cards and they were amazing. And then I found a Beckett one day and discovered they were worth something, and it all took off from there. I had the typical break that a lot of guys do. You get to that high school age, you start becoming interested in things other than baseball cards. So, I had a layoff for a while, but I got back into it about 10 years ago. I think around 2010, 2011. And it's been just an adventure ever since.
Yeah, it's really interesting. All of us have that story of getting into it as kids, and it was never about money, right? Like, it was never about, oh, I hope I pull a $2,000 card. I hope I pull a $10,000 card. It was just this pure, love for collecting. And that's, again, sort of what we're seeing from you, and especially you and Jesse. Like, you guys are such purists in the terms of collecting, because you guys know you have things that are valuable, but you truly appreciate and understand the history and depth and the nuances of new cards. So for you to have left, or got back into it about, you said 10 years ago, roughly.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing, because I've got a really long gap and I only got back into it just recently. So when you got back into the hobby, kind of what brought you back?
I was starting to settle down. I'm in my 40s now, so I was getting to be in my mid-30s, and a lot of nostalgia was there. And I've always been a collector of things, whether it was baseball cards or Magic the Gathering. I've always been a hobbyist in that way. So when the opportunity came in my 30s, I was, and this kind of brought me back into everything. I was looking around on Craigslist and eBay, and I found a Mickey Mantle coin that they sold in the 60s that was PSA graded. I ended up buying it locally off of Craigslist for $100. I got it home, put it up on eBay for $200, and it sold in 2 hours. And that was it. I was hooked again. I was like, oh man, just spent 100. I just made 100. This is great. So, and it was a weird time in cards at that point too, because, you're talking 2011, 2012, Trout's coming of age, Bryce Harper, and, that 2011 Topps update Mike Trout that's worth a small fortune these days. I remember getting back into it and buying them all I could for $15. Anyone I could for $15 just to sell it for 20, 25. And then when they reached 30, I was like, all right, this is ridiculous. It's a base Topps rookie. I'm out, and just, obviously you see how that one turned out for me. But just a lot of fun.
Yeah, no regrets, obviously. Everybody has that story. I don't know if Jesse has that story yet, but we know that Rob had that story.
Okay.
It's funny. It's John, it's funny that you mentioned that when you were a kid, money had nothing to do with your love of the cards. And that was absolutely true for me. But if it had anything to do with the cards, it was my favorite card when I was growing up that my brother passed on to me was an 85 Topps, 85, 86, I can't remember, Topps traded Barry Bonds base. Just regular base, non-Tiffany, of course. Whoever has the Tiffany, they're pretty well off. But I saw that card in the Beckett magazine, in the Beckett price guide. It was worth I don't even know, $20 or something. And that was I treated that card like gold. I'm like, oh my God, this might be worth $100 one day. This is
right.
Yeah, so it was just I love the purity of being able to collect as a kid. And yes, the boxes of cards, of course, they cost money, but you don't think about the cards being worth thousands of dollars as a kid. You're just so happy to pull one of your favorite players or somebody who is on your fantasy team or something, if you were old enough to play fantasy back then. So it was an incredible time in collecting. And when John, when you said that you came back in 2010, 2011, you said it was mostly nostalgia purposes, but is that kind of, are those transactions that you were able to make, for example, like with that Mickey Mantle coin, is that something that kind of helped you stay in it, or is it like maybe a combination of that and the nostalgia?
So the nostalgia was there, and I knew that, one of the things I was looking forward to in the next few years was starting a family. So, putting cards away for my kids was something that I wanted to do, hopefully get them interested in it as well. But that, to be able to make that quick flip, that quick $100 on that Mickey Mantle, that definitely was the hook that, jerked me right back in, and I was back for good.
Now, I talk about purists as kids and that the money didn't matter, but as an adult, selling a card and profiting on a card feels incredible. And again, the idea, the sense of community and wanting to only do good is a huge part of the card thing, because you want sustained growth. You want more enthusiasm. There's a lot of younger people that are involved in this, and you don't want anybody to get turned away. But at the same time, if you're selling a card and you're listing it high and somebody's willing to pay that price, I mean, do you ever turn it down out of honesty?
Oh, I mean, we're ultimately, especially at our age, we're here to do a quick flip.
That's right.
We're here to make a couple bucks.
That's
I
right.
mean, there's definitely things that I buy for just the hold purpose and it'll never go. But that dollar is ultimately what we're here for. And, I've made the decision since that, this is something that I'm doing, to sustain my lifestyle. So I definitely look more to that than just I don't know. Sorry, I'm losing my.
Okay.
So you talk about using, sales to sustain your lifestyle. So Jesse told me that you're currently are you a dealer by definition, or what is your position in sort of the world of cards?
Yeah. First and foremost, I deal. And then second of all, my thing is the shows and promoting shows and local get-togethers for the community. So, but first and foremost, I'm a dealer. I've got, thousands and thousands of dollars in eBay sales every month, that don't affect any of the trades and, any of that stuff. But when I promote shows, I promote shows. I don't set up at shows that I promote. There I'm looking to make sure all the dealers and all the people that are coming through are having all their needs met. So, so I guess when you're looking at me, my primary position in the community would be the promoter of the shows, but definitely with the backbone of the dealing there. So,
and you're currently in Denver, as your Twitter handle would be. I hope you don't move, John. For the sake of your social media names, I hope you don't move.
Yeah, I was going to say it wouldn't be a good look for the Twitter names.
Nah, for personal reasons, once I got to Colorado, this is home.
Awesome.
Never leaving.
Yeah, beautiful state. So yeah, obviously, one of the things that we wanted to talk to you about is sort of along the lines of the conversation about community are these card shows that you are building. So how many card shows have you organized or promoted so far?
So I probably, before the pandemic, had promoted about 25 to 30 shows. They were smaller in size. We were about 30 to 40 tables at the shows, nothing really big. But post-COVID, we were presented with an opportunity when and I'm not trying to get political, but they moved the All-Star game away from Atlanta and Major League Baseball All-Star for political reasons. And once that happened, with the loosening COVID restrictions, we were given an opportunity here to really put something on special for the state. Now, I've been a part of this community for a long time, and I know that this area was ready to be put on the map as somewhere, hey, this is a great area for cards. There's a ton of great guys here, a great, great community. So we put on the big show. We filled I think 185 out of 200 tables.
Wow.
And yeah, for a first time show,
wow.
We couldn't have asked for more.
So,
Go ahead. I was going to say we had about 2,000 people come through as as just people walking around. And I know that's not anything compared to the numbers that we just saw with the National, but we were very, very proud of what we built, and everybody had a great time.
So, John, honest to God, with the show that I went to in Philly, I was hyping that show up a little bit on one of the episodes that Nate and I recorded. I don't even know if we had that many tables it was a big show. I mean, it took me probably a good 4 hours just to go through every section of the show, but 185 tables and the work, I can't imagine the work that it takes into organizing that. That's like gargantuan right there. So like what exactly went into from your end in terms of like organizing it? I mean, honest to God, like it was a shame that I wasn't able to make the show in Denver, even though I talked about it on the show. But I mean, I would love to make, future shows over there in Colorado.
Well, I mean, as for what went into it, we had a small amount of time. I think we put together this show in about 75 to 85 days. So finding a venue, getting the word out, everybody knows that the Dallas shows right now are the big thing, other than the National, because they happen fairly regularly. So I made a point to go down to the Dallas show a couple months ago. I spoke with every dealer out there, let them know what we were doing, what we were building. I mean, I shook hands, kissed babies, did all the things out in the crowd that weekend, to make sure that people were at least saying, hey, Denver's got something going on. And, a couple of my friends are dealers that kind of travel to all those shows. They were in Wisconsin for the Dell show. They do the Dallas shows all the time and stuff. So they were out helping put the word out and letting them know what we were trying to build and what we were trying to do. And it all came together great. So there was a second part to that question. I kind of trailed off.
I just wanted to see if there would be so obviously you had a ton of success with this first show with filling 185 out of 200 tables. I don't think you're going to have a problem filling 200 tables moving forward if the show will continue and still be a thing. So I wanted to see if there will be if there might be future shows out in Denver moving forward that you might organize.
Oh, 100%. First of all, now that I'm back and have a little bit of downtime from my show and the National, we're going to start working on some of our more localized shows. And based on the response that we had for our big show, I'm actually planning on going from our localized shows, which were about 30 to 40 tables. We're going to try to expand that to about 70, the availability of 75 to 100 tables. But as for an all cards weekend, another one of those massive shows, we're going to start doing those twice a year at the beginning of next year. The venue that we were in held the 200 tables like a champion, but we only rented a third of the room. So we're actually able to expand that to somewhere around 700 to 800 tables. Not saying that we can get there immediately, but we're able to grow into something there. And that's going to be the focus, and I know things came together late. I sent you guys an invite to come out. We're going to put some next time too. We're going to put some, we're going to use one of our booths. We're going to put a bunch of podcast equipment in there, and we want to have you guys come down and do a live show. Nate, I know it won't be in the middle of July, that busy time for you. So
yeah. It's unfortunate. All this stuff, we planned this big family trip, and unfortunately, it fell right on it because I would have loved to have gone to the National, which we're definitely going to get to. So many people. I mean, I know from our Discord, I know people that I know personally attended it. I asked Jesse, I was like, man, did anybody hit you up? Did you feel like a superstar? What was going on out there? And Jesse said that there was a lot of people around you, John, and that you had quite a bit of traction going on out there as well. But as far as these Denver shows, when is the next show that you're organizing going to take place? Will there be one in 2021?
There will be the smaller, more regionalized shows, our localized shows, yes, for sure. And once we have a venue locked down, we'll manage to when and where those are going to be. But for our big national level, regional level shows, we're going to be aiming for April of next year to get that up and running. I could get one together by October, but I'd be throwing myself right back into the whole getting a show organized in 75 days. And man, honestly, I burnt myself out last time. By the time the show was done, I slept for a day and a half.
Yeah. Well, you have the recipe, right? I mean, you filled a ton of tables. I mean, I think that as things open back up, hopefully if that's the direction things trend and the enthusiasm in this market, I think Jesse's right. I don't think you're going to have any problem filling a multitude of tables. And certainly we will have you back on as we approach that so we can pump it. I know for a lot of people, when it's an air quote regional show and not local, it requires travel plans for people. I know for Jesse, it would have been travel plans. For me, it would have been travel plans. So for many of our listeners, it would be the same thing. So hopefully when you know in advance, we can advertise it, get you on, talk about it in advance so people can set up a trip, because I know that there are so many people that would love to make it to an event like this, especially with somebody as enthusiastic as you. But for the person that's trying to set up local card shows kind of in their area because it doesn't exist yet, what advice would you give them? Like, what's the first step to really doing something like this?
The first step, I mean, I'll be honest, Nate, the first step is getting to know the people in your community, your local community out there. I really feel like as a promoter, I spend 75% of my time building relationships, making sure that, the needs are met of the dealers locally. Like for my localized shows, the 30, 40 table shows that we did for 2 years, I bought every dealer lunch at Chick-fil-A. They do those little box lunches, and because a lot of these guys don't have a chance to get away from the table during a day, they don't have that opportunity. So, I mean, as dumb as it sounds, that little box is just so much goodwill in there, that everybody loves a Chick-fil-A, but when you're stuffed, that just goes a long way. So if you're looking to start a show in your area and you want to promote things, make sure you're building those relationships. Make sure you're doing the little things that make everybody in that community want to do the same thing for you. Because there was a promoter in Denver that was kind of sandpaper before I started taking things over. And, it was rough. He was trying to go to smaller places that were cheaper, and he wasn't listening to the people around him who were saying, hey, we need bigger space. We need more room if we're going to grow anything. And, that's just what you have to do. You have to build relationships and make sure that you're listening to the people that are out there coming. You need to listen to the people that are coming in the door as customers. You need to listen to the vendors. It's all making sure that relationships and needs are met. That's pretty much all promoting shows is.
John, I'm going to take a page out of your book from what you just said about building relationships and just being a kind human being to other people. There was when I was at the National, there was one dealer, a nice guy. I was able to talk with him for maybe a day or two. He had a Randy Moss card that I was really eyeing down. And the second day when I came to his table, I saw he was just, I think he made like a $7,000 deal with somebody, with one of the buyers that was walking around the show, and then all of a sudden I saw him. I'm like, okay, all right, this is my time to bounce and finally start negotiating for this Moss. And then I just see him pick up a hot dog, and he's just like exhausted. I'm like, you know what? I can talk to you tomorrow. It's fine. So at that point, I'm just like, dude, should I I was even talking to my girlfriend. I'm like, maybe I should just buy like $100 worth of water or something, or $50 worth of water or something, and just pass them out to random dealers and just say what's up. And I might not even look at their case, but just do it as a good deed. And I'm sure people would appreciate that. And honestly, I feel like it pays to be a good person at these types of shows, and just to kind of gain relationships and build relationships with people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about the relationships. You never know. You could be handing that bottle of water to someone who wasn't able to get away from his table for 2 hours, and that you never know what kind of deal he would give you just because of that nice gesture. I mean, it's all about relationships. I think that about life, but it's especially apparent in our community.
I think that's why your shows are probably growing at the rate that they are, though, too, John, because word of mouth, people speak highly of you. They know that you're a guy that's putting in the work. And it's one of those things, all of us have worked at a job where we had a boss that would tell us to do something that they would never do themselves, or they didn't put in as much work as you. And it erodes them as a leader. We don't look at them the same. We don't want to go into the trenches on behalf of them because they haven't earned our full respect. But somebody like you that's recognizing that these people are doing something that they love, but they can't get away. You're bringing them food. That doesn't sound dumb to me. I know you said that it sounds stupid or dumb. Not at all. Like, it isn't. Even if it's Chick-fil-A, it's not Ruth Chris Steakhouse. It's still like this little gesture that to these people means a lot. It's the reason that when you call them up prior to April next year and say, hey guys, I'm doing a show, they're going to go, John, I'm there. I want a table. I'm going to be, and I'm bringing a buddy because I told him he's going to be there too. And that's how this grows. This is how it's like a brush fire, and it just takes off because you get really great people that not only help increase the enthusiasm of people, but they help, in a sense, just grow this community greater. And it's getting huge. I mean, I get, Jesse as well, and you will probably after this, we get messages all the time. I mean, every day I get numerous messages from people with questions related to cards from accounts that I've never seen before. And that to me is just, there's at some point in their day, last week, a month ago, 6 months ago, there was something that was said or some conversation they heard or a topic that just sparked that little enthusiasm, and they were going. Just like when you sold that card, made $100, you were going again. And these moments, these things that you're doing, I think are a huge benefit to the community. And I'm sure you're going to do even bigger things in the future. But tell me this, guys. I wasn't there. I couldn't see it. A lot of people didn't see the National. Massive event. Walk us through what it was like, when you walked into the room. What did you see? How many tables were there? Like, how significant was this event?
You go first, John.
All right. So I got there on Tuesday to set up on Wednesday morning. Wednesday morning was dealer setup and early preview day. And right off the bat, before it was even open to the public, there were tons of dealers walking around trying to see what kind of deals were out there, what they could find, what they were looking for. And I thought this foot traffic before was borderline incredible. Then 4 o'clock happened and they opened the doors. And as I mentioned, we were the last booth next to PSA's corner. Like, we could see PSA signage right where we were. And there was a stampede of people that were running to get to PSA to be what was eventually a 200-yard long line. And from what I understand, I don't know for sure, but PSA sold 80% of the entire allotment of grading cards that they could have in the first 4 hours that they were open from 4 to 8 p.m. that night.
Wow.
I have no idea what those numbers were, but it was absolute madness. And as for the show, again, I mentioned I've never been on the dealer side of the table at this show. From the time the show opened on Wednesday until the time the show closed at 5 p.m. on Sunday, there was a line of people everywhere. There were people in front of all the tables. Now, I've done so much promoting of shows in the last few years, I actually hate being tied down to a table. I'm used to walking around the room, again, shaking hands, making sure everybody's got what they need. And so to be tied down to a table like that was a new experience for me, but I didn't have the opportunity to do anything else because there were people there the entire time.
Wow. And so because, you would know by the numbers, your show did 180 tables. How many tables do you estimate were at the National?
Probably 1,200, 1,300.
Wow. Sounds about, I was going to say probably somewhere, but by booth numbers, it's probably somewhere around like 1,250 to 1,300.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, like I know all the numbers don't go all the way up, but like it's absurd. Like it's funny because they've got a big map that was in a magazine of the whole layout of the place, and there was the program for the National. So I get home and I'm showing my girlfriend, And I was like, hey, baby, this is the National. She's like, oh, wow, that's neat. And then I took my finger and I circled like a little island, and I was like, that's the show we just did. And she was like, oh, my God.
Yeah, perspective.
So,
I mean, that's really what it comes down to in that case. And so here's a question, because some of my buddies who got into cards because of the show that Jesse and I are doing, they were texting me. They're like, you got to go to the National. PSA is doing grading on the spot. Is that true? Is that what they were doing there?
yeah, they were doing it on the spot. As a matter of fact, like, you could hear every couple of seconds there was this little high-pitched kind of machinery noise. And after a couple days, we put it together. That was their slab machine, their sonic sealing machine every time.
Wow.
And then, we started thinking about it. It's like the minimum that they're grading there is $250, and we're hearing that sound every couple of seconds.
Wow.
So like PSA just they were walking away with bags.
Wow. Yeah, it's so incredible. I mean, and they're still the kings of the castle right now, and here they go. They show up at the National, and obviously they're making a ton of money there. I mean, Jesse, you weren't tied to a table. I mean, what was your experience walking in? Was it just were you bumping into people all over the place? Was there nowhere to go?
All right. So Wednesday was the first day I was there. So I spent at least some amount of time between Wednesday, like every day, Wednesday through Sunday. So I would be there pretty much for at least like 4 hours a day each day. I mentioned on the last show, I dragged my girlfriend along. She was a really good sport about it, but kind of like the implicit agreement between us was like, all right, first half of the day, as soon as we get up, get out of bed, get ready, go to the show. First half of the day is cards, second half of the day is Chicago. So I thought that was a pretty fair trade. So I was only there for probably about like 4 hours a day, outside of maybe a day or two. And it was just Wednesday was tame. I tried to be pretty I try to be pretty disciplined with my spending, just because you don't want to like blow your wad in the first day and then just kind of walk around with empty pockets. So not the wisest thing to do, but there were some cards that I had my eyes on after the first day. But Nate, honest to God, that show was so big that there was one corner of the show that probably had maybe around like 200 tables or so that I didn't even get to. It was just that big. And I regret not getting there, just because I know they had insane gold LeBrons and Kobe's and just 90s inserts that I can only dream of. So, I mean, that show, it was I can think back to Thursday specifically. It just seemed like Thursday, John, I don't know about you, but Thursday, like, I think I ran into the Panini lines, I ran into the Topps lines, and there were just so many dealers in that area that had so many cards that I wanted to look at, but they were just people that were in those lines. I couldn't even get around them just to get to the tables. So that part was a little bit tough. If you stay if you stay away from the middle of the show, where like that's usually where the promotional booths are. That's where like the bigger companies like Panini, Topps, the auction houses are. If you kind of stay around like the corners and edges of the show, which is ironically where John was, you'll stay pretty good in terms of being able to get away from like the bigger crowds and actually being able to breathe. So but the show, it was incredible. Like the energy was just insane. People have been talking about how the hobby's been on a down slope and a downward trajectory for the last couple of months, just because of the MJ Fleer and 86 MJ Fleer PSA 10 prices going down, but and a bunch of other modern cards going down in price. But that the energy of that show and just the amount of people that were legitimately looking to transact was like really something special. Nate, I'm not kidding. John, I don't know if you know an exact number off the top of your head or not, but I heard there might have been like as much as 100,000 people that walked through the doors over the course of the 5 days. And at first it shocked me, but I'm knowing how Thursday and Friday were of the show, I could honestly believe it.
Yeah, the only thing I've heard, and it was all speculative, was that first of all, they had sold about 100,000 tickets for sure. And that on Saturday alone, there were over 40,000 people through.
Wow.
So just it was a zoo. I've been on the other side of the tables and never had a problem getting around, never had a problem, navigating the place. I couldn't have imagined having to go around and get around this show.
So we've got Jesse's perspective. He's a guy at the show going table to table, and he says he couldn't even get to the equivalent of the Denver card show worth of tables. And then here you are, you're on the other side of the table dealing. What's that like? What were there people just constantly at your table?
Yes, there were constantly people at the table. If we had a break, so the booths they have there are 10 by 15. And I shared the booth with two of my good friends from out in Denver. So we each had a table, and there was never a period during the show where there wasn't someone in front of one of the three of our tables. And, it was absolute insanity the whole time. We'd have occasionally breaks where there wouldn't be anybody in front of my table, so I'd be able to sit down or grab a quick snack or something. But, my buddy Adam's table would be full, so, and, just in the sense, you don't want to sit it down immediately. You want to make sure Adam's got the support that he needs when he's back there. And, Jay, who was at the other end of the booth, you never know when he's going to need a little help. So it was just insanity the whole time.
I can't imagine like the whole it's not just like a physical workout. It's like a mental workout too. Just even like every dealer has their own strategy of pricing their items. Some people use a sticker gun. Some people have, a little black book and they just, keep everything in there, keep all their transactions in there. But some people just kind of have it right off the top of their noggin, and or maybe they'll see something change in price as the show goes on and just have eBay ready to go on their phone, and their prices change along with the rest of the market or the market that the show itself is creating. So I can't imagine, in addition to the being physically drained, just like the mental exercise that it is to be a dealer at the show.
Oh, keeping up with it was exhausting. And I was not prepared for this in the least. I thought I was, especially with the experience that I have with shows specifically, but nothing I've done could have prepared me for just how wild this whole week was.
I think Jesse, he makes a great point. Just the idea that you would need to do just so much mental gymnastics to like keep track of prices, and this guy asking this, or even worse, if somebody comes up, it's not just, hey, how much do you want for that? It's, hey, do you want to make a trade? This is what I have. And now taking into consideration what it is that they have, if it's unslab, what the quality is, what it goes for. Like, I imagine that all of that is just, like Jesse said, exhausting.
100%. I planned to go out to some of the trade nights that were going on out there. I'd planned to go out to a few nice dinners with some friends while I was there. The only thing I did after those shows were over was I went to the hotel room, I put on some Netflix, and I went to sleep. And it was crazy. I got an Apple Watch that keeps track of the steps, and I'm not sure how, but in that 10 by 15 area, somehow I'm still putting in 15,000 steps.
Jesus.
Like, what? How does that happen in a space that small?
Yeah, that's amazing.
John,
yeah.
you and I had a little side conversation at the show one of the days that I visited your table. You were saying that you had basically like a whole case worth of a certain sports cards that you were just able to turn over in like a day's time. Did you feel like while you were at the show that you almost felt like you needed to race to buy more inventory just to turn it around in that time frame?
Yeah. So there were two things that really surprised me about the show, and give our listeners here a little tips as to where things may be moving. I sold a lot of baseball. I sold a lot of basketball. I sold a lot of football. But three things at the show really stood out. One was UFC. I started out with like a row in a case of UFC cards. Sold them.
Okay.
Filled it up with 2 rows. Sold them. Filled it up with 3 rows. And I'm, So I'm buying as much UFC stuff out there as is coming up to my table as I can just to fill this demand. And but UFC and soccer, the worldwide football, were just in high demand, especially with the younger demographic that's really been taking a hold. A lot of these sneaker flippers and that kind of group really seem to be attracted to soccer and UFC.
That is super interesting. See, okay, this is the nugget that we needed. This right here, this is what just put it over the top. We had a guy that's a patron, and maybe once he hears this, he'll drop it in the Discord. He had a Hoist Gracie 1 of 1. I think it was a Prism Auto. And he was like, what do you think this is worth? And I'm like, dude, I'm like, it's huge. Hoist is, I've got a background in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like, he is, as far as UFC is concerned, like, that guy is the beginning of everything, right?
Okay. I mean, so first of all, I thousands, but that's not really an arena that I'm good in. Especially on that really rare, crazy stuff. And then just Prism as a whole, I was doing collecting when people didn't care about Prism. 13, 14 Prism in basketball was not a thing. People didn't collect it. It wasn't a desirable product. So even for me, when these new Prism products come out and, things are selling for hundreds of dollars for base cards, that's just an arena I'm not used to right now. Now I'm trying to adapt because, you constantly have to adapt in this market to make sure that you're staying on top of things. But I don't really know. I know that card is huge. I know UFC and soccer both have that worldwide market to them, where there's people in all kinds of countries that want to collect this, not just here in America. So I think there's some sort of correlation there. But those big cards coming out of these new products, like, I'm used to Prism being a $200 or $300 box. I'm not used to Prism coming out at, $900 like the UFC one did.
Right. Okay, now, John, I'm not good at math here, but you said 3 things. Now, we said soccer, we said MMA. Was there one more thing?
Yeah. Kaboom. So much Kaboom this weekend. It was bananas. First of all, in my background, Kaboom are my favorite card. I collect them. My handle on Instagram is Kaboom_collector. They're my favorite. The visual appeal on some of those cards is just crazy. But they moved at rates I wasn't expecting. I sold a gold Russell Wilson for nearly $4,000. And people were buying everything. I sold a Bryce Love Kaboom. I didn't even know people still cared about Bryce Love, but I think that Kaboom just adds a little bit of allure. But they're beautiful cards if you've never held one in hand. But they were flying at the show.
Honest to God, doesn't it seem like, all right, so let's say a player is completely irrelevant. I'm talking like a shade of a tier above Darius Geist level irrelevant right now. There you go.
Bryce Love.
Isn't like a Kaboom or a gold Kaboom like probably their most sought after card right now, especially if it's a modern player? Yes,
100%. And you'd mentioned my Grail in my collections, my Tatum Kaboom rookie gold. I keep saying it. I've been saying it since those gold Kabooms came out, that card will go down as probably the 3rd or 4th most desirable Jason Tatum non-1-of-1 rookie card. I believe his Prism Gold and his Prism Gold Auto will probably be the only 2 that will consistently outpace the Kaboom once, his career set, and once, we've gone through the full evolution of these. I sat back for years and said, guys, Kaboom is going to be the 2015 version of the PMGs from 1996, and I've been buying them and commercing in them since 2016, 2017, and it's been a fun ride for sure. But they are moving like crazy. I think people really like that superhero crossover.
Yeah, they're incredible looking cards. I know Ethan, obviously you know who that is in the Discord at the dude. He's all about them. We always text back and forth, and it just seems like those cards have really caught fire. And so it makes a lot of sense what you're saying right now, that they were one of the most popular cards, although they're very expensive, right? To get one of these premier players, you're talking about base cards going for hundreds of dollars. I mean, Kabooms are, for the people that haven't looked before, when you get on eBay after this episode and you go look them up, I mean, you're going to be shocked when you see some of the really nice ones out there. But I know Jesse is a big fan of Kaboom as well. I mean, Jesse, is that your belief as well, that these cards in the future are going to be considered, one of the most collectible cards of its era?
I think in terms of the Panini era, 2012 Prism Golds they are literally going to be gold, or worth more than gold itself. It's like they're going to go down as probably as close as you can get to the PMG. But interestingly enough, I didn't give, maybe when we thought of this question beforehand, I didn't give it quite as much thought as I should have. The PMG is actually not an insert; it's a parallel from the Skybox Metal Universe set. So in terms, like, Kaboom's an insert, so we have to think of a 90s insert that this would be just as sought after. And if we're thinking insert, it's like, it's not even a question that Kaboom is going to be the most valuable insert and most sought after insert in the Panini era. I mean, I don't know how much longer Panini is going to have the exclusive licensing rights for football and basketball, but people years from now, decades from now, I'm already seeing the next era of collectors being like coming into the hobby right now. And this is what they're growing up on. Just like we grew up on cards in the 90s and the early 2000s, when Upper Deck and Topps ruled the hobby. And then like I said, in the 90s when it was Skybox and Fleer. So I'm thinking kids right now who will come back to maybe step away for a couple of years and then come back to it when they're in their late 20s or 30s or 40s. They're going to be looking at these types of like cards that look like literally comic book cards. That's literally the description of Kaboom. So in terms of the PMG might not be the comparison that I'm looking for if we're just getting technical, just because we're talking parallel versus insert, which it's a whole side conversation. But whatever the most sought after 90s insert is, and trust me, 90s inserts are worth plenty of money right now. That's the trajectory that Kabooms are looking at.
Yeah,
agreed.
The Kaboom has taken off, and I'm pretty sure after this episode, we're gonna have a lot of listeners that are gonna be sifting through eBay looking for them, and like you guys mentioned, Bryce Love is selling. So if these people that are just maybe looking to make a couple bucks, I mean, they could literally be looking for any number of these cards, right, and still be able to turn a profit.
Absolutely. And I tell anybody that'll listen, hey, I want to buy this Justin Herbert Kaboom. Okay, well, here's the deal. If you believe in that player, you cannot go wrong with buying a Kaboom of them. Because even if the player were to somehow break his leg, never play again, the Kaboom is still going to have collectability. A lot of that player's cards are just going to fall right through the bottom and hit the floor, where those Kabooms are still going to hold a little bit of allure.
What's crazy is that I've talked to collectors like of 90s football and 90s basketball, and a lot of these guys that I've spoken to, they don't really collect modern day players. They just they've kind of set their sights on one guy, and that's it. Like I've talked to a couple of Jerry Rice collectors. I've been getting a little bit into Jerry Rice collecting myself. It's pricey range, but what's fascinating about Kabooms is that's like the one. There you go. That's it. That's literally the one insert in the Panini era that these collectors of the 90s are actually looking for. Jerry Rice hasn't played football for 20 years, almost 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, they're looking at his Kaboom. And honest to God, those guys, like, if you look at like 2020 Peyton Manning Kaboom cards or Brett Favre or whoever, like insert player X who's been retired for 5+ years, their Kabooms are still sought after. I mean, they might not go as much as a modern day player, but there's still like collectors, people who are going to be in this hobby through thick and thin are wanting these cards. So that really goes to that says so much about the insert, probably more than I ever could.
Yeah.
So let
Agreed.
me. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just agreed with it. That's it.
Okay. So I want to ask you a question because I'm a bit naive about what takes place as sort of a dealer at these tables. But with as many people that are kind of coming and going at your table, is theft ever an issue at these shows?
Theft is definitely very prevalent at the shows. I think fortunate enough not to have any theft at the show, but primarily I know that's the case because all of my cards were in display cases. And I think a lot of the people that are going around trying to steal are like looking through the boxes that you put up, your prices marked box and stuff like that, because those tend to be easy targets. You can get things that people aren't paying attention. I think there was video that was released of somebody who had a backpack. They caught him stealing, and then they emptied his backpack, and he had hundreds and hundreds of cards, which he had to have been going through those, 50-cent boxes or whatever it is, stealing from off the table.
Yeah, there's always people trying to take advantage, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess that kind of segues into our next point there. When my son was born in 2015, I had decided that it was time to put an heirloom card away for him. So I started doing a little bit of research and decided I was going to buy a Michael Jordan card and put it away. I bought a PSA 9 Michael Jordan card, went to buy it. The serial number checked out. It was 2015, so I was using a barcode scanner and scanned the barcode, and it matched the same number that was on the flip, which was confirmed through the PSA site. It was a Jordan 9. So I put that card away for my son. A few months later, the guy who sold it to me reached out and was like, "Hey, just wondering, are you happy with the Jordan?" And, yeah, very much. Thank you. Heirloom card, just what I wanted. And he's like, "Well, if you were really happy with that Jordan, I got a Reggie Jackson you should come take a look at." So I go to look at the Reggie Jackson, and really, really, really long story short, I sent it to Probstein to have him auction it off. And Rick reached out to me and let me know, "John, I'm not sure what's going on, but the Reggie Jackson that's inside of your PSA 9 case here has been trimmed." I took it to my friend at SGC down the road. We confirmed it. And, I can't help you and sell this card because I can't put my reputation on the line, which I understood completely. So long story short, both of those cards were fakes. They were fake PSA slabs. They were just complete and utter trash. I reached out to PSA at the time. I was told if the serial numbers matched, it was have a problem. I then tried reaching out to Joe Orlando on Twitter, who was the president of PSA at the time. Joe Orlando blocked me. Blocked me. Didn't say, "Hey, I can't talk about this." He just blocked me. So I was sour on PSA for a long time. But, ultimately the problem is for years and years and years, there have been fake PSA slabs that have been just decimating the market. And I ended up getting in touch with a FBI agent in 2018 or 2016 who was investigating this at the time. Interviewed with him, he thanked me for the information, and I never really heard from him again. And wouldn't you know, at the National, I was standing at my booth and a couple guys come up, show me some badges, and it's the FBI agents. Now, we're talking about 5-6 years later. I haven't heard anything from these guys, and they're like, "Hey, we want to talk to you about those fake PSA slabs." So go over and start talking to the guys, and they asked if I would remember the person who sold them to me. And he was very distinctive. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm positive that, I could pull him out of a lineup essentially. And the guy's like, okay, good. So pulls out his phone, did a lineup right there. And, I picked the guy who I believe was the guy out of the lineup, and they seemed very satisfied with that answer. And apparently they're trying to get him right now. But there's fake PSA slabs out there. You got to be careful what you're buying and who you're buying it from, because if you go, again, this was when I was still kind of getting my feet wet back and everything. And I was just looking for a deal. So I looked on Craigslist, and that's how I met up with the guy. So, if you're not careful where you're buying, I paid cash, so I was completely at a loss in all of this. And it's part of the reason that I started dealing was because I wanted to make sure that people in Denver could come and buy from somebody that they could trust. They could buy from somebody that if they come back a month later and they say, John, man, I sent this card to PSA and they said it's fake. They know that I'm going to make right by them. I'm going to make them whole again. So it was part of what pushed me into where I am today. But yeah, there's a lot of scamming and a lot of things that you got to be real careful with your money out there.
John, I'm sure, well, as a quick side note, Nate, I'm sure, has been trying to reach out to Joe Orlando. He probably still DMs him every day without success. He's probably on a trajectory to get blocked.
It's the funniest thing, man. It's so funny. Literally, I think it was last week or the week before that, I went on my rant about how I've hit up Joe Orlando so many times on Twitter, email, every way you could possibly imagine to get a hold of him, fucking Skywriter, and I cannot get a hold of him. So,
you might need to send up smoke signals to California or something. Like I don't know what he responds to, but I told him I was scammed and I got blocked. So I'm not the biggest Joe Orlando fan.
He's got a little bit of time on his hands now, I'm sure, without being president of PSA. But it's super honorable that you actually you kind of went above and beyond, not just accepting that what was transacted was a trimmed card in a faked PSA slab, but you actually tried to go to PSA themselves just to kind of, at least make the issue known to them that, dude, your slabs are being faked. Like that is a thing that is going on with PSA slabs. And I know Nate and I have talked on previous shows about BGS and how they're getting shit on left and right with their slabs being faked and with their lack of response to them. But that's a whole other discussion. But you really went out above and beyond to try to at least make this issue known and make other people aware of it, to the point where the FBI got in touch with you. It's really admirable. Where, like, I'm sure John, you've told me a story or two about other individuals who didn't quite go that route. And instead of getting to the bottom of it and making sure that what they had was fake and having other people know about it, some people just turn the other way and just sell it to the next guy.
I'll tell you what, I don't know what you guys know about Vegas Dave, but there's a very publicized case where Vegas Dave got one of these fake PSA 10s and he just literally passed it on to the next asshole. And I feel like that's such a scummy move for that guy, because that guy's made of fucking money. Like, dude, take your L and get on with your life. Like, that is a real scumbag move. I'm a paycheck to paycheck guy. Before I started into cards, I humped 15 years in restaurants. If I can take that L, bro, you can take that L.
Man, you're playing clear the cash whack-a-mole right now. Joe Orlando, Vegas Dave.
Let's go.
I'm waiting for the trifecta. I'm waiting for that one last name that hasn't been called out yet. So here's a question. Obviously, my depth in the hobby is not like you guys. It's part of the cog in the machine of this show. Jesse's the expert, and I'm going through my journey to become a card expert like you guys yourselves. But when you use the phrase trimmed, you said the card was trimmed. What does that imply?
So what that implies is that the card had a little edge damage or something, and they just take a little shave and they shave a little piece of that edge off, and that just kind of makes it look smooth and clean again. Not like it was cut at the O-Pee-Chee factory in the 90s, you know? So it's just a way to alter the card to make it look better, to try to pass off something to a customer that's just not authentic or genuine. And that can happen with more than just trimming, you know, that can happen with coloring, you know, a Michael Jordan card that has a little chipping on the border. Some people try to get a little red marker and make it look red again, you know, and try to pass that off. And, you know, all these things are just not considered good in our community. They're not acceptable. So that's not something that we need to be out there doing, promoting, or sharing, you know?
And it's really tough to pick out a trimmed card too, just because like we're talking like expert level trimming. Like this is like a millimeter trim to like a fraction of a millimeter.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with a lot of it, but one of the things, and I'm not going to get into the methods, of course, of how they're doing it, but a card, even a 1969 Topps baseball card, has a certain thickness to it, right? And what people are doing is they're actually flattening it. They're flattening it a little bit, and then the edges pop out a little. So it's possible to trim that edge and make the card still the entire 2.5 by 3.5 hole, but you've still made those edges a lot cleaner, but the entire card is thinner. You know, it's been pancaked now.
Wow.
So that's still considered an alteration.
So were the slabs like this Jordan card, was the slab a fake slab? They had recreated a slab with a number that was authentic, obviously, and okay, wow.
Yeah, that was 100%. And actually, when Rick had called me to let me know that the Reggie Jackson was not authentic, he said, John, one of the things that we've been able to do with the slabs that we've targeted as fake is we can take our thumb and put our thumbnail in between the crack in the seal there and kind of rub that thumbnail right up there. And on a lot of the fakes, that case is cracking right open. Now, John, we tried that with the Reggie Jackson and it didn't work. Well, immediately in my brain, the first thing I thought of was, you know, oh my God, that Michael Jordan, you know, what am I going to do? I go up to the Michael Jordan, stick my thumb in the cracks, boop, the whole thing popped right open. And when the Jordan came out of the slab, literally the card wasn't in my hand for 2 seconds, and I knew that it wasn't the same cardboard stock as a 1986 Fleer. Like, it was a completely fake card.
So, John, I mean, what's going through your head at that moment, right? You say you buy this card, it's something you want to put away. It's got a ton of sentimental, like, future value to it. Like, the moment that you realize that, oh crap, this happened to me, and this card that I didn't even think it was, you know, fraudulent is fraudulent. Like, what happens in that moment?
A lot of panic, you know. I was down between the two cards and I mean, please understand, I wasn't buying these prices. These was 2015. So I paid $2,000 for the Jordan 9 and I paid like $3,600 for the Reggie Jackson. So I was out $5,500 at that point, which was a real kick to the Johnny, you know? And we're just, what can you do? At that point, I called the police. I made a police report. And, you know, I was told there was a Denver police officer that was working on a case. So I got in touch with him and told him my story. And he's like, John, I'd love to help you. But unfortunately, when you were telling me my story, you went to this guy's house, and his house is in Aurora. I'm a Denver police officer, and Aurora is a suburb of Denver. So I can't go into Aurora and start an investigation. And I called the Aurora Police Department, and they're like, sir, we have real crime that we're fighting. We're not out here chasing baseball cards. So, you know, I was kind of just up shit creek for a long time until, you know, I started reaching out to other people who I'd heard this had happened to, and then got in touch with the FBI. And, you know, I really wanted to do anything that I could to make sure that we try to get this guy, try to put this guy away, because it doesn't make sense that he's out here just ripping people up. I would not be shocked, but I believe that the general population would be absolutely floored to find out the amount of fake Michael Jordan PSA cards are in people's collections right now. I'd be willing to bet that it's probably 5% of all Jordans and PSAs are probably fake.
Wow. So and that is, you think that some of these that are going for $500,000, you think one of them was probably not real at some
I
point.
I think a lot of the big auction houses at this point are aware of what's going on, so they're able to really detect what's going on. I don't think you're getting something like that by PWCC. I don't think you're getting something like that by Golden or Heritage, but what these guys did was they would find power sellers on eBay that don't have that type of following. And they'd be like, hey man, I got this Michael Jordan PSA card. I'll trade it for, a couple of the ones you've got and a couple $100. So he would then get legitimate cards that were worth money and some money and just ship them shit.
Yeah, it's absolutely a scum thing to do, very clearly. And you've now seen FBI members twice, and this is 2015, so it's 6 years later now, and this guy's still out there, it sounds like still selling fraudulent cards.
Possibly. I'm not exactly sure where they were at in their investigation, and I will say that the lineup that I was shown, the photo that I identified as being likely the person that had scammed me and others around me, he was very disheveled. He looked as though he had been booked at that point. So I don't know if they were just, I don't know where they are in their investigations. I don't know if they got the guy and they're just kind of solidifying their evidence or what, but if they haven't got him, I'd imagine they're real close at this point.
How incredible is it about the what it says about the longevity to turn this into a positive perspective, about the longevity and growth of this hobby if we're talking about a 6-year FBI investigation over basketball and baseball cards?
It's crazy
to turn
right?
this a little positive.
Ridiculous. Yeah, no, I mean, it's tough to hear, but this was one thing that I think came up early on in the Discord, or Jesse and I may have had a podcast, and this was really initially kind of when we had first met you, John. I think you had messaged me on Twitter and first brought it up, and you had showed me the FBI reports even, I think, of kind of what had taken place, just to sort of validate, like, hey, I'm not full of crap. This is what happened, because we were talking about fraud in the industry and how it is prevalent. So for the people that are buying slabs on eBay, what are some things that they should look out for? Because it's been a while since we've talked about this. I mean, what are some, because you can't see the card personally, so you can't run your thumbnail down it. What are you looking for online?
Right. The first thing I'm looking for is the name of the seller. The best thing you can do is buy from a trusted source. As much as people don't, you hear a lot of the chatter, fuck PWCC, fuck Probstein, I would buy from those guys slabs knowing that they're probably genuine, and if they're not, they're going to do something about it. If you buy a slab from, little Timmy 14 with the 12 feedback and you got a good deal on it, but it shows up and there's nothing you can do, you got PayPal course, but you don't really know. And what happens if you find out 2 months from now or 3 months from now or 5 months from now that it's a fake? Is little Timmy going to back it up? No. But if you go to Probstein or PWCC at that point, they're still going to back up their sale. They're still going to make sure that the people, if they were ripped off, they will be made whole. So the first thing I look for is the name of the seller and to see if they're trusted. Beyond that, I use caution with the big things, with your Jordans, with your LeBrons coming up now. If you're out there shopping for, a Spud Webb rookie, I don't think you've really got a whole lot to worry about. I don't think there's people out there that are, faking Doug Williams rookies just to get something by you. It's really, they're targeting people that are looking to save a lot of money, and they're targeting people that are looking in the shadows. They're not looking in the main places. So that's my advice. Yeah,
that's important, because that's the one thing that could really hurt the growth of the community, is suddenly this infused conspiracy theory that there's all this fraudulent stuff being done out there. You can't trust buying from anybody. That's the kind of thing that keeps new buyers out of the market. But you two, both very veteran buyers and sellers, I mean, you know where to look. Jesse, is there anything else that you would add sort of to what you would look for? Obviously, looking at the seller is incredibly important.
I think just exposing yourself into at least seeing what these cards look like. Let's say you have let's say your dream card is pretty much almost any grade or at least a PSA 7 of an 86 Fleer Michael Jordan. Just I'm sure even if you look at old slabs, newer PSA slabs with a PSA label and hologram, you can just kind of tell if a slab is being faked or if there's just something off on the label. Like, I swear to God, maybe yesterday or 2 days ago, I found this one gold. I can't remember which year it was. I think it was a gold finest Tom Brady, and the BGS slab, man, it looks so off. It looks so off, and people are watching this card. So who knows? Maybe I'll share it on Twitter and just get people's opinions on it. But I guess that's part of it too. When you see something, say something, and just kind of, or at this point, I don't know how active you guys are on Instagram, but just give it to Card Porn, and Card Porn they'll cancel that right out the hobby.
They'll vet it.
Honestly, we need that type of watchdog police in our hobby, and I know we do a pretty good job of policing ourselves. Honestly, like, we're talking to an expert here in Jon in this type of category. So, so basically just kind of immerse yourself and really know what to expect and what to look for in a certain card or even a slab when you're looking to buy. And just like Jon said, honestly, the buying from a reputable dealer or an auction house or whoever, it's you might pay a little bit more, but it'll be worth it in the long run. Like, Nate, we've been talking about maybe some auction houses that have been experiencing shill bidding and maybe some cards that have gone up in value, maybe artificially, and then they are auctioned off the next week just because of the amount of shill bidding. Maybe they've been mentioned on the show, but the name of the auction houses. But honestly, at this point, I can't even blame them for that, just because of the story that Jon told us about Rick Probstein. Like, that guy actually cares, and if he goes out of his way to tell you, listen, this is very likely fake. Like, he goes through that time. I can't imagine how many cards that guy goes through in a week. Like, and if he goes through, if he really takes his time making sure that a slab or a card is authentic, that really makes me trust those sellers and those auction houses. Ken Golden has come out publicly multiple times over the last couple of months, calling out for trimmed MJ Fleer PSA 10s or other cards that he suspected to be trimmed, or maybe the slab was of questionable authenticity. So these auction, especially the auction houses, they're not hesitating to come out to PSA. And honest to God, PSA is all ears right now. They don't want their reputation tarnished, so they're looking to get to the bottom of it. And if they have to contact the authorities, the FBI, whoever, they're going to do it. So honestly, that really brings me comfort that these big auction houses, they're not just in it for the dollar. They're in it to keep this hobby sustainable for a long time and keep everybody safe.
Yeah, I can't agree more about Rick. I mean, the fact that he was able to, first of all, identify the problem and was not willing to put his customers at it. The guy, when I called PSA to complain about this, the first thing they said to me is, well, maybe the auction house just didn't want to sell it. And I was like, wait a minute, you're trying to tell me an auction house isn't just going to want a free, whatever their commission is, $500 for selling this card? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me at all. It makes a lot more sense to me that he's trying to protect his brand than, that he just doesn't want to make any money. So, and the only other thing I wanted to add to the, if you're looking to buy something like a Gretzky or a Jordan, one thing that you can do to familiarize yourself with the card without actually having to spend a ton of money at first is pick up a small lot of other cards from the set, because that'll actually give you can put your hands on them. You can see little things on the cardboard that you can't really see on a picture on eBay. So if you familiarize yourself with the rest of the set in those situations, that can do a lot of help when you're trying to buy. Man,
Jon, I love it. This interview has been not only educational, but kind of mind-blowing in a sense. I mean, from this fake slab controversy to what you've done in the community. I mean, I was told by Jesse, he told me before we ever did this interview, he's like, number one, he's like, you're going to love this guy. He's like, his quote to me was, I feel like I've already known him for years, was the quote from Jesse. So obviously that's high regard. And I mean, obviously you're an incredibly positive, charismatic individual. And we definitely want to have you on this show in the future. Is there anything that we didn't get to tonight that you've got going on personally or anything like that, or anything you want to plug before we get out of here tonight?
No, guys, this has been a great interview. Thank you very much for the platform. Just two quick things. If y'all want to hit me up, if you have any questions about this stuff, find me on Instagram at Kaboom_collector. That's going to be the best way to get in touch with me. I do my best to reach out to everybody who does reach out to me. So please feel free to do that. And if you guys don't mind, I just want to do a quick shout out to my league. Strictly Business, boys. It's coming. Nikki, 2 years in a row, you're done this year. Norm, you suck. Strictly Business. We love this, guys. I love fantasy football, and to be on this platform has been an honor. It's been a lot of fun. Thank y'all for everything.
Yeah, man, absolutely. No, you were a great interview. Again, we've done two others. I would be lying if I didn't say that this was possibly my favorite of the three so far. You were absolutely great. And I know Jesse spoke incredibly highly about you. So thanks again for coming on.
Of course, guys. And if y'all have any questions about anything too, please, y'all know where to find me.
Absolutely. All right, Jon. Well, thanks again. All right, guys, we will be back next week on Clear the Cash.